Python Week 2. This week we're going to look at variables and how to name them. So first of all, what is a variable? One of the most powerful things about Python is its ability to manipulate variables. A variable is just a name that we give to a value. So just like in Scratch, how we created the light variable with the Pico board, and then that light variable represented the amount of light in the room, so we can do in Python. The value can be any integer, string, or float we want. And the name can be almost anything we want, with a few exceptions. How do we create variables in Python? It's very easy. You just type the name of your variable, then the equals sign, and then your value. So let's do that now. I'm going to create a variable called my height. Then I will press the equals sign, and then I will say 185. And when I press return, nothing happens. Well, something did happen. The computer remembers this, and now it knows that my height is 185. So if I say print my height and I press enter, it will say 185. Let's use the other function that we learned last week. Type my height. What do we think will appear here when I press enter? It is an integer, because 185 is an integer. So this here is called the assignment statement. That's just a very fancy way of saying that this goes into this name. So you give the name, you say, I assign this to this name. So it's kind of like you create a box called my height, and inside that box you put the number 185. It is known as an assignment statement. Variable names. We should always choose a name that means something. They cannot contain spaces. They must start with a letter, and instead of using a space, you can use the underscore to make it a bit easier to read. Like this example on the right hand that says, my favorite band in the whole wide world. The top example is difficult to read. The bottom example with the underscores is easy to read. So let's try and make some variables. So I said it must start with a letter. So let's try starting one with a number. 99 red balloons equals 99. Then we press enter, and oops, it didn't like that. Syntax error, invalid syntax. That's because we started with a number. You can't do that. Let's try and do something else here. My age at equals 100. So I press enter. Oops, it didn't like that either. That's because it has a at sign. You cannot have an at or a chiocciola in a variable name. Third example, class equals M3. Let's press enter and see what happens. So what's wrong with that? Class, it doesn't start with a number. It doesn't have any strange symbols in it. So what's wrong with the word class? Well, class is a keyword. And a keyword is a word that does something very special in Python. This is a list of the keywords. You don't need to know them, but we cannot use them as variable names. So if you try to create a variable with any of these names, such as and, as, assert, break, class, def, for, etc., you will get an error. And you just have to understand that you have to try a different name for your variable. Apart from these keywords, you can name your variable anything you like.